everyone, how you doing today? My name's Kirsty, aka Beth Bookish, and this is the Adventurers TBR. I released a video just last night explaining that I was retiring the My Heroic TBR, which is on the back. Originally I was going to remake it, but then I decided, hey, let's come up with a completely new game. And it's the first time I've done a game that is completely my own. Up until now, the first TBR game I ever did was based off of Trivial Pursuit and was inspired by Jade from JD Ray Reads. Then I did the My Heroic TBR, which was very heavily influenced by G from Book Roast's TBR Avatar. This time I wanted to do my own concept, my own board, my own everything. And I came up with the idea of basing it off of the massive readathon that I do, which is Adventurerathon. And I just thought it would be fun to do a reading challenge every month that links to that. So it kind of keeps the readathon fresh in my mind, in other people's mind. And it also, because obviously there are some character pathways that we've done that will no longer be appearing in the game. There are locations we will visit that we won't then go back to. And I figure it's a nice way to kind of just have a bit of a love letter to everything we do in Adventurerathon. I've deliberately left some bits blank. It's just going to be every time we do a new round, I will come up with a new symbol or a new thing that will be added into the game. So yeah, this is the board. I'm not going to lie, I have essentially used the Jumanji board and done the same pathway layout because I really liked that idea of having different directions that we could go. We start off in the middle. To start the game, what I will have to do is roll a d4 in order to determine which of these 4 pathways we begin with. In each 4 corner, if I plop this here so you can still see it, in each corner will be one of these 4 discs. So we have 3 dead ends and 1, like, yeah, you've reached the end. Now, if I reach the correct end, I get a reward. And then the 3 dead ends, I have made these kind of like extra challenge prompts and things that I know I struggle to do. So I have complete a series, a book that I've been putting off, and a 550 plus page book. Because I am not very good at reading chonkers anymore. I'm very, very good at having books on my TBR for super duper long periods of time. And I'm really terrible at completing series. So what will happen is when we start each kind of time on the board, we'll have the 4 stuck to the board, face down, so I won't know which is which. And then, like I said, we start in the middle, we pick our journey, and then as we start walking our way around the board, we land on certain symbols, and the symbols will determine what I do. I'm going to go through the board and the symbols in more detail when I actually get to play in the game and take you through it, because it's easier to lay the board down and show you in better detail. I really hope you all enjoy, whether you're taking part in Adventurerathon or you're just here because you love TBR games. So how things are going to work in terms of like set rules, it's going to be very, very similar to My Heroic TBR. So every month I roll my dice. I'm going to choose how many times I roll, and for this game I'm setting it at 6 rolls. For every book that I complete in that month, I get to move a step forward. Then for every of the certainly of the blank prompts, there is a little extra thing that I can do, and that will give me 2 steps forward. But then for every unread book, I go back a space. So if I read 3, didn't read 3, I just stay in the same spot. If I read 4, didn't read 2, I go forward 2. If I read all 6, then obviously I go forward 6. I then have little extra rewards and boons for myself. So for every 3 that I complete, I gain 1 life. These lives can then be used in a matter of ways. So for every 1 that I don't complete, I obviously go back. But for every 3 that I don't complete, as a little extra kind of punishment, I have to add a book. So, you know, I start off with 6. If the previous month I didn't read 4 of them, I have to do 7 this month. That kind of thing. However, on the flip side, as a reward, if I complete 3 books, for every 3 that I complete, I gain 1 life. And these are ones that I can stack. I can have a maximum, I can bank a maximum of 3 lives. And then use them kind of as a little bit of currency for myself, so I can trade them in for various little things. Every month if there's a prompt that I draw and I really just do not like that prompt, or I'm not feeling it, or I don't have a book that fits that prompt, which I have tried to avoid but might happen, but if I have a prompt that won't fit in, or I just am not feeling that month, I get 1 free redraw. But say I've drawn 6 cards and I don't want to do any of them, I can trade in 1 of my lives in order to just completely redraw those prompts. And then if I manage to save up all 3 of my lives, I can choose to trade all 3 in to get a sneak peek at the end of my current path. So for example, I'm halfway through this pathway here, I've started, I'm here, I've realised I've still got a while to go, I can trade in my lives, have a sneak peek, go, I know that's a dead end, so I will discard that one. I don't have to complete that prompt, I can just go straight back to the beginning and pick a new pathway. And then obviously once I have completed the board and I find the correct one, then I will get that reward of whatever I choose. It sounds pretty complicated, but it's really not. It's just literally a case of get myself around the pathways, try to find the correct ending that offers a reward. And then depending each month on how many books I do or don't read, I either gain lives, lose lives, or have to add extra books on. So I'm hoping it will work and I'm hoping you all have fun. Obviously there is the option if you want to play along by choosing the same prompts as me, and whatever prompts I have, you do the same, you can. Or eventually I will put up a photo of the board, so if you wanted to print off your own copy and play along, you can. I think it's time to go ahead and play the first round of the Adventurers TBR. So let's go. Here is the board with all of our components, and I'm going to talk you through. We have our adventurer Maytharanel. She is my cutie. I love her so much. So she is our adventurer. We have our D6, our D4, and then we have 2 piles of cards here. If I land on a blank space, then I have to pull from the top deck, which are my general prompt cards. There are 5 categories in total of these. These are very loosely inspired by the tables over at the Guildhall that we did in the first round. So the categories I've gone with are queer, graphic novel and manga, ebook, audiobook, and then I have a blank sort of wild card option. For queer, the symbol is going to be this little sun at the bottom. So basically, if I read a book featuring witches, I get to move 1 square forward. If I read a book about witches that is also queer, I get to go forward 2 steps. Graphic novel and manga, I've got this little arrow, bow and arrow set. Don't really know why, just did it. Next we have this little flower symbol, and because when you go outside and exploring, a lot of people read audiobooks when they're travelling, when they're out and about, sounds of nature, etc. So we have a little flower for audiobooks. And then for those of us that like to collect tomes, create spells, quite often you amalgamate them into 1 tome, 1 book. So I thought it was fitting that an ebook, aka like a Kindle, would be fitting for the sort of magic potion bottle magic users table. So that's what that symbol will mean, is ebook. And then finally, blank means I can do any book I want as long as it fits the main prompt. I don't have to do any extra matching. Then looking at the board, the symbol that you see the most often is this star that I just could not seem to get consistently correct, and it's quite hilarious. Those represent places and people, and so if I land on a star, I have to choose from this pile, which again has been sorted into 2 categories. We have people. So these are all of the classes that we had back in the first sort of character creation rounds. Some of these are no longer in the main readathon itself, so that's why I wanted to include them in the game. But we have like Inventor, Necromancer, Spy, Warlock, Blacksmith, etc. And then as we go around on our adventures, I will be adding locations. And so with these, they are different. The prompts are different to what you see on the readathon itself. So for example, the Guildhall in the readathon, you had to read a book that matched a specific vibe. This one is just a book that has the hero's journey. Everglow Falls, you have to read in the readathon. The prompt was a book with a source of light and something with water on the cover. This is changed to set somewhere that I want to visit. So I've made it more personal to me. I made it so that it's not just the same things over and over again. So we have the people and places if I land on these stars on here. Then we have the skull and treasure chest. So if I land on the skull, that is the Jar of Doom, aka the Go to Hell jar that we had last time. I will eventually upgrade this jar to like a skull or something, but for now we're just going to stick with the old one. And this is a jar full of books that I am either putting off, reluctant to read, not sure I'm going to enjoy, intimidated by. Basically the books that I am not super hyped to get to and that don't often tend to fall at the top of my stack. Or it could even be books that I keep forgetting that I own. A lot of my ebooks end up in here. And so if I land on a skull, I have to draw from this. And I have to read this book. Otherwise, the penalty for not reading that book is to go back 3 spaces and lose a life. Meanwhile, the treasure chest, this is sort of linked to items. So in the character creation rounds, for all of the characters, the tools and items were things that were to do with the covers of books. So tool on the cover, sun on the cover, this on the cover, whatever. And so I've decided to make that its own category. So if I land on a chest, I pick from this jar, and these are all going to be to do with things that are on the cover of books that I then need to find and read a book. And there's no punishment for not reading this one, but the reward for reading this one is getting to go forward 3 spaces. And then our final one is the tarot card. That's where my tarot deck will come in. So if I land on those squares, I get my trusty tarot deck. I pick a card. And then I can do one of multiple things. I can either now choose a book that has any of these items on the cover, so moon, cup, penguins, anything like that. I can think about the setting, so penguins are usually in cold settings, so maybe I'll read a book set in a cold climate, or I can look up the meaning of this card and choose a book that fits that theme. If I complete my tarot book, whichever one I'm on, I can choose to jump to a different tarot card on the board. For example, if I am here, I've still got all of this to go to get to the end of that pathway. I could then choose instead to jump to this one, so all I have to do is another few steps and I'm at the end. So it's just a nice little way to, you know, treat myself. Right, this video is going to get stupidly long, so I think it's time for us to shuffle up the cards, place them on the corners, and play the very first round of the Adventurers TBR. Let's go! Our adventurer is ready. I've also just realised I haven't actually labelled which pathway is which, so I'm going to go from 12 o'clock pathway 1, 2, 3 and 4. So which pathway are we rolling? We are going for number 4, which ironically is the longest of the pathways. So we're going to start with roll number 1. We have a 4. Starting off with a blank. Our first ever pick of this game, we have a queer book, which is to read a non-contemporary book, and if it's queer, then I gain an extra step forward next month. Roll number 2. Another 4. Maybe I should do a thing if I roll the same number X amount of times in a row, I get punishment. Yay! Okay, we get a tarot deck. Right, so let's have a shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. I'm not good at shuffling cards, please do not judge. And we are going with a boom. Ooh, Page of Swords. Roll number 3 is a 1. So we have another blank. This is a travel. The prompt is travel and audiobook. Roll number 4. 3. And we have another blank. And that is to read a book club book, and is a wild card, so any book I want. Roll number 5. It's a 2. Ooh, and we have landed on a people and places square. So our first person or place is the blacksmith, which is to read a hardback. And then our final roll for this, the first inaugural round of Adventurers TBR, is a 1. That was kind of anticlimactic. And we finish with a final blank card, and we have food is the prompt and a graphic novel or manga is the book. Okay, cool. Before we go back to my thing, I am allowed to redraw one prompt should I wish to. And I think, because I don't really I can't think of any off the top of my head, I am going to redraw the graphic novel manga prompt for food. And instead, we now have indie/self-published, and that is an ebook. Cool. So those are our picks. That's where we got to, and we are about halfway to our first counter to see if we are going to win the game on the first try. So let's go pick some books, shall we? Okay, it is the next day because it took me longer than planned to pick books. Disclaimer, I swapped out one of my reads, one of my things. I gave myself a bonus swap because I picked out the book club read. I'm not kidding you, I have gone through about 60 book clubs today, and not one is reading something in February that I own or want to read. So I'm getting really frustrated with that particular one. I decided I was getting too frustrated and too agitated, so I just swapped it out and I drew school setting, and if I could team it up as a manga, that would be great. And in true fashion, I keep saying that I'm going to try and prioritise books that I've had for the longest time and have instead picked books that are new and great. So first up, it was a non-contemporary that if I could get queer as well. And so I have picked a Psalm for the Wild Bill. I picked this up in Edinburgh. It was one of my birthday presents from Ren, and it's tiny, it's small, but it's also sci-fi and is queer because the robot is non-binary, I believe. It's basically robots left humanity behind and sort of disappeared from existence, and now it's amount of time later, a robot has been sent to find out what humans need and how they're getting on without robots and technology. And it's a story following the robot meeting a monk who is a tea monk and talking it through, from my understanding. I don't know, I've never read Becky Chambers, but I've heard loads of good things and I know a lot of people love it, so give it a go. Then it was, what was the second book? Then it was a book that features travel, and if I could get an audiobook, even better, and against my better judgment, it's the final chance that I am giving Sarah J Maas, because as we know, I loved book 1, I hated book 2, so let's see if book 3 balances back out into okay. And so I do have a pre-order on Audible for the audiobook, and so far I've listened to the other 2 on audiobook. So we have House of Earth and Blood. No, we don't. We have House of Flame and Shadow. And so that will be what I read. It's the 3rd book in the Crescent City series. I'm not going to explain what it's about, because if you don't know, you're probably never going to read it. And if you do know, you don't need me to explain it because it's the 3rd in the series. But it just is an urban fantasy thing, and it's now become multiversal between different series, and I'm like, uh-oh, skadoodio. But we shall see. I will at least give it a try. Then we had my tarot pick, and I drew the Page of Swords. So I was like, it could have a bird on the cover, it could have a dagger on the cover, it could be this kind of colour scheme for the cover. And then when I looked up the meaning of this book card, it was talking about following your passions, staying steadfast, holding on to your morals, and speaking up against injustices. So for this one, I've gone kind of more with the theme, but also there is a dagger on the cover, and that is a Netgalley Arc that I have that's due out on March the 1st, and that is, I need to look it up, The Bride of Death. I can't remember the author name because I didn't write it down because I'm clever. But The Bride of Death, she basically, in order to gain power and stop this evil thing from happening, she marries Death and to siphon his power. And I think it's to like stop him, she has to marry him. So I figure that's like standing by your morals and having a goal, and she's got a thing that she wants to do, and so she's doing what needs to be done in order to achieve that goal. And it has a dagger on the cover, so double whammy. Then was originally the book club book, but obviously, as I said, I redrew and I got a school setting, and if I could get a manga, which I did, we have Spy Family Volume 2 by Tatsuya Endo. This is little Anya here is enrolled at an academy so that her adoptive father, who is a spy, can gain intel on one of the other kids' dads. And so she gets in, and this is the start of her at the school, so it's definitely a school setting, and it's also so cute. I love this series. For Blacksmith, it was to choose a hardcover, and again, going with a new one, but also because I really want to stay ahead and on top of debuts, especially this year. I have already read one, so this will be my second one. We have The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. This is an adult fantasy, and it's basically a woman who, her whole family have kind of been cursed, and the bright women of her family disappear. Her mother's disappeared, and so she's decided to try, and the person who like controls that and is the one that causes the disappearance, she's like, I'm going to confront it and I'm going to get my mum back. And along the way, kind of, I think it's was it Penelope? Yeah, their tormentor is a woman named Penelope. It was like her mum left to break the curse 10 years ago and never returned. And so now she's decided that she's going to find her mother so that she's not taken instead. Because, yeah, she doesn't want to be taken. But it leads her into the path of Penelope's assistant, Alexander. So I imagine there's going to be some conflict and romancy stuff there with them. So that was my pick for hardback. And then we have finally a indie or self-published, and if I could get an ebook, that'd be great. And I've gone with First Blade by Jane Hinchley. This one is an urban paranormal with, she basically she's got abilities, she ends up summoning this entity who's like evil, and then ends up having to team up with him. I can't remember why, I just know that there's a team up, and I remember reading that it's got sort of a cast that involves like a paranormal detective and things like that. So it just looks really cool. It looks like it's going to be my kind of book, and again, it is self-published. It's one that I picked up Stuff Your Kindle, which is a thing that I need to really crack on and do, is read more of those. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that one. So that is my stack of books for the month. That is my game launched. This is a very long video, and I apologise. But also, I really hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments what you think of the new game, and if you plan on playing along with the prompts that I draw each month. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content, and in the meantime, I hope you're all good, I hope you're staying safe, and until next time.